Aditya Digital Network presents the longest running episodic talk show in India in association with the Dusra.net, India's number one and only sports, education, and entertainment. Mental health and sports person have always been a connecting point for decades, but it wasn't talked about often. It was mentioned but only in passing, but now it has become an important issue. Why? Because India's captain Virat Kohli talked about his own struggles with that perennial problem. Like India's former player Tendulkar, Kohli starves for media attention and he will say anything, do anything to get their attention back on him. And this time he targets the issue of mental health and depression among players by giving his own example when he felt that he no longer deserved to be part of the team or he was not performing the way it was expected of him. And it comes at a time when he, as a player, as a captain, and as a legend in this particular sport, is settled. So, what was the specific time did he mention? If you remember, in the year 2014, when India went to England to play a test tournament, India lost 4-1, and the entire burden fell on the captain, the former captain Dhoni. Was this phase worth talking about from Kohli? Because 4 months later, after this lean period, he not only performed well in Australia, he went on to become the captain of the team. And now he is in such a position that dropping him is almost a felony. This is in context to Australia's Glenn Maxwell taking a break from the sport due to mental health issues. But Maxwell is not the first player to take a break from their respective sports. So why should we feel empathetic towards Kohli when Rishabh Pant is also going through a similar phase, when over the last couple of months he hasn't made runs in the capacity he is expected to do the job? Pant also, like Kohli, came in a flash of lightning as a part of the Under 19 World Cup, performed well, and then because of a couple of errors as a wicket keeper, he was shunted out of the team or not preferred as the first choice keeper. But Kohli didn't have to go through such a phase. Despite his low performance, which he referred to, he was not dropped. He was made the captain the moment Dhoni retired. There were so many options as far as the captaincy of the team were concerned, but he was made the captain. And at this phase, KL Rahul is also going through a similar phase where he is not making runs in the definition of making runs, and Pant is also not able to create that kind of fire and alacrity as he is expected to do, and we are being very critical of him. Yes, we were critical of Virat Kohli, but he was lucky to have MS Dhoni as a captain. Not only did Dhoni smartly hand him the captaincy by retiring from at that point of time in Test cricket in a year's time in 2016. October 2016, he retired from the one-day captaincy, and Kohli went on to become a captain as far as the various formats of cricket is concerned. Will Kohli have the same kind of attitude towards his younger, that is the likes of Pant, Rahul, Gill, Iyer? This is where Kohli differs from Dhoni, not as a player but as an astute captain. If Kohli is talking about his struggles in that particular tournament where he did not make a single run, imagine what must be going on in the mind of MS Dhoni as a captain when the entire country was pressurizing him to go, to leave. Everybody from print, electronic, and digital media were descending upon him like a ton of bricks. But did you ever see Dhoni admit to such things? This is what makes Dhoni different from Kohli. So if we have to categorize, Tendulkar and Kohli always starved for media attention, even he does right now. But Dhoni is in the Dravid book of letting it go. Dravid also struggled through a certain phase, but he never took advantage of the emotions of the fans or anyone who was interested in that sport to take advantage and have all the attention and the empathy for him. And if that's the case, that we have forgiven Kohli for that phase, then why can't we also understand what are the likes of Rahul and Pant going through? Did we ever think that in 2014 Kohli, who was not making a single run, would now replace Tendulkar as the new god in the country? In 2014, I am sure no one even thought that. And now we cannot think a team without Kohli, without Kohli's influence, without his influence on everything under the sun, right from cricketing activities to non-cricketing activities. Don't be surprised if 5 years from now Pant is being talked about and is being given the respect and is being declared the new god as Kohli is. If Pant tomorrow comes back into the team and hits 4 centuries in, let's say, next 10 matches, then we will forget Pant for not scoring. All the criticism meted out to him will be forgotten and will remain a part of the archives. So why can't we think about the likes of Pant, Rahul and the others in the same scenario as we are giving Kohli all the respect right now? Yes, Kohli has done well. He came out of that phase. He made the runs, but at one point in time, nobody thought that he should be in the team. But the captain fought for his place and retained Kohli in the team. Not only did Kohli go on to become the captain, he changed the idea of the team and its attitude. But the 11 players in this team, who are right now at least 9 of the 11 players, in fact 10 of the 11 players, owe it to someone like Dhoni. Rohit Sharma was considered a liability. Pujara had begun well, but they thought he would not be able to survive, would not be able to, let's say, replace a Rahul Dravid. Ajinkya Rahane was also in that phase where should he be there, should he not be there. Similarly, the likes of Jadeja and Ashwin, 8 years ago when they made their debuts, nobody thought that they would be your premier bowlers, especially in the test matches, because when these two individuals came, they were those bowlers who could bat a bit. And now in 2019, Ashwin is your best off spinner, almost in the category of the legends. So is this showing one's double standards? Well, it is. If we have to talk about double standards in this sport, let's look at a situation. If you remember, in 2018, two of Australia's best players, yes, best players, Steve Smith and David Warner, were suspended for their involvement in ball tampering. And now the question is, what is ball tampering? Ball tampering is when the player, through the use of some foreign objects like your nails, saliva, some kind of toffee or object, tries to change the condition of the ball, tries to, as they say, rough it up so that in cricketing terms it reverses. Is it cheating? Yes, but ball tampering has been happening for decades. Why were Steve Smith and David Warner caught? Because of cameras. 20 years ago, even if this was done by a few players, they would have escaped because there was no evidence. But evidence and the alacrity of the umpires got these two individuals in trouble, and they were not suspended by the International Cricket Committee. They were suspended by their own board. And I can give you a similar example. If a student cheats, for example, in an exam, if CBSE or such a central body does not get involved, but their own schools suspends them for a while, then that is what happened to Steve Smith and David Warner. They were suspended for a year. But a ball tampering incident happened again. It did not generate the kind of news it should have. There was nothing on the electronic media. It happened so quietly that even the media did not pay much attention to it. A small snippet was the only way they disseminated that news. Why? Because this guy was not an established player in the team, unlike Warner and Smith, who had been there for a while, who had been there for over a decade as players. Who was this player who got caught? But unlike Smith and Warner, did not get a year's suspension, did not get all the media attention, all the concern about cheating. It was Nicholas Pooran. In the eyes of the media, Nicholas Pooran is what we call a fringe player, a B player. He has still to make his position in the team strong. He is trying that. So what happens? The double standard of the cricketing rule come out. Warner and Smith are suspended for a year because of the external pressure of the media, the involvement of the prime minister of that country, and so much happening all around their involvement. And then Australia were playing South Africa. It does make a difference. Bangladesh were playing Afghanistan. So this wide discrepancy is so obvious. This guy Nicholas Pooran gets suspended for only 4 matches, which is at the most 1 month. So if there was any doubt about the hypocrisy and the discrepancy in which the punishment is given to a player, not that I want Pooran to be suspended for a year, but you see the difference, the attitude, the way we have towards certain players. Warner and Smith were Australians. Pooran is from West Indies. For us, the respect for West Indies is going down. For a normal individual who is heavily invested in the sport, West Indies means the likes of Clive Lloyd, Vivian Richards, and their contemporaries. And we are so infatuated by those players that we cannot look beyond them and look at new players. And if we have to go beyond a Clive Lloyd or a Vivian Richards or a Alvin Kalicharan, we would include a Chandrapal or a Ramnaresh Sarwan or Lara and a few more. But beyond these, we are more than happy to lock out the play of the West Indies team. For us, they are only a team which plays well in 20 overs and at worst in 50 overs. But as a test team, they are nowhere the often romanticized team of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So, this is how cricket, the sport, is played. It's uneven in terms of punishment, in terms of having rules. The rules are complex. We don't know which organization's rule do we follow. Is it MCC? Is it ICC? MCC being a purely private organization who are also so lost in the 16th, 17th, 18th or 19th century that they try to enforce those laws. They try to put their conservative mind on the sport. So it's difficult to understand whether we follow the ICC laws or the MCC laws, or is there any kind of understanding between these two organizations, and this is something I am still confused about. If some other player in some other sport had talked about this mental issue, let me tell you, it wouldn't have become such a highlight point. It would have been a small snippet. If tomorrow a football player says that I am taking a break because of a certain reason, or I had a phase where I wanted to take a break, we as the media, the stakeholders would have let it pass. Why? Because it's not coming from the mouth of a cricket player, and it's not coming from the mouth of the likes of Virat Kohli or Ravi Shastri or something like that, which shows that how this sport dominates us despite our partial attempts to get kabaddi or football back in the top notch sports. On one hand, we say there is so much of cricket. On the other hand, we give this sport a full page importance. In fact, out of the 4 pages of a sports section of a newspaper, 1.5 is reserved for cricket, and the last page is always for football, but not Indian football. It's reserved for the European leagues or leagues from other countries. It shows our mindset that the mouth is where the money is. Just like Ganguly, if tomorrow the head of the Hockey India Association is a former player, will we have the same kind of excitement that we had about Ganguly's becoming the head of the Indian Cricket Board? Maybe, maybe not. So, who could be the potential head of the Hockey India? Well, that is something we won't know unless elections happen. And unlike cricket, where you have some restrictive rules about the age factor concerning who can be the head of the association, who cannot be the head of the association, no other sporting body has to go through this rule. So, my simple analysis is, if you are having a sports code, then the rules by the Lodha committee with respect to cricket should be seriously followed and implemented in every sport, which means that people over 75, if they are not allowed to become administrators in cricket, if there is a cooling off period, then the same rule should apply to each and every organization, which includes the Olympic Association of India and the bodies under it. But let's move on to another sport which I had talked about on Wednesday about the India Afghanistan match, how important the match was with respect to the qualifiers of the World Cup and the Asia Cup. Well, the match turned out to be an excellent one. It seems that Afghanistan is a better football team than they are a cricket team put together. Rankings don't matter. India, Afghanistan equalize at 1-all. Yes, 1-all means that you still don't get the 2 crucial points. You still are struggling to be in that category of qualifying, but still it's a better performance after being 1 down. Teams like Nepal, Bangladesh, Afghanistan are better in football than they are in cricket put together. So, yes, why doesn't the country invest in the sport they are good in? Human nature is to love statistics, and cricket is the only sport which is filled with numbers, statistics, and analysis, which is missing in sports like football or hockey. Because, as I have said a million times, cricket is an individual sport feigned to look like a team sport, while football and hockey are actual team sport where you have to work hard to score that elusive goal. So in that match against Afghanistan, yes, India may have not garnered the point, but the fact that a 1-all result is also a very good one. And like hockey and football, there should not be a super over for every match. Like penalty shootouts, super over should only come into play when it's a knockout situation. The team is either in a quarter final or a semi final match. If it's just another tournament where the results don't matter in terms of qualifying for the next round, then super over should not be utilized. If the match is tied, let it be tied. So in summation, super overs in this particular game should only be used in either the quarterfinals, the semi-finals, and the finals. That's it. No need to use it in the league phase of a tournament unless the situation is that one of the two teams need to qualify. It should be used judiciously and only when needed, and not waste time for the sake of wasting time in a super over, because even the preparation for a super over takes a lot of time. You need to change the idea of a super over and be very smart about it, because if there is a super over after every match, even in a tournament which is inconsequential as far as the world tournament is concerned, then individuals will be bored. So if the final result is a tie, like in football, if it's tied at 1-all or 2-all or 0-0, let that be the final result. And if we have to look at the big three in different sports, then it's not only Kohli, it's Mahesh Bhupati and Leander Pace from tennis. It's one and only Vishwanathan Anand from chess. In cricket, it depends. There is no one great player. But in other sports, as far as India is concerned, from the point of view of football, you have Sandesh Jhingan, you have the best keeper Gurpreet Singh Sandhu, you have the upcoming players Anirudh Thapa, you have the experienced guy in Sunil Chetri. From hockey, there are plethora of players, from Harmanpreet Singh to Manpreet Singh to Akashdeep Singh to the keepers in Akash Chitke to the experienced keeper in PR Srijesh. So, am I excited about India's prospects in the World Cup? Well, for me, I won't be concerned if they do not qualify for the World Cup, but they use this experience to take their game forward, to play against the likes of Germany, France, Spain, Portugal. It's time for the Indian team to play against such countries, because they have to move on from that phase of playing against the likes of Oman, Tajikistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Syria. We have to move on from this. We need to test our waters on new turf. Can the Indian team play against the established teams in Brazil, England, France, Germany, Holland, Portugal? If we can do well against them, even if the result is 0-0 at the end of full time, it will show how the team is progressing, because right now it seems as if we are not progressing. We are still playing the same Asian teams, or the South Asian teams, or the West Asian teams, means we are limited to a few countries. If we have to show our progress, we have to play against countries who have established their system for over centuries. Maybe we can learn from them. So it would be prudent for the Football Association to organize friendlies, means the Indian team, when they are not playing the qualifiers, irrespective of the final result of the qualifiers, whether they qualify or not, we should not be sad about it, but we should use this experience and be involved with the teams who have for centuries established their system. And we don't need to worry about the result. We can just organize friendlies. Results are not everything. It's about the process and the implementation of what you have learned by playing against the likes of Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Syria, Oman, and others. This kind of change attitude would be a miracle if the various football association, the sports department agree to such a radical idea, because I have my doubts if they will go all this way. Because the less they worry about football, the more the various bodies can count their chickens as far as cricket is concerned. Thank you for listening to episode number 130 on the 15th of November 2019. This episode was brought to you by Aditya Digital Network. please send your valuable suggestions through your comments and audio recording to the email ID adityatherewriter@gmail.com. You can also like and subscribe to my YouTube channel and Facebook page, and stay tuned for the next episode.